Have you heard of Mitsubishi? Mitsubishi Heavy Industries is a Japanese giant that operates in so many industries that it's difficult to keep track. Today, we will talk about a division of this giant that has had a confusing history and has not lived up to its true potential. You may have heard about Mitsubishi cars. Iconic cars like the Lancer and the Pajero are products of Mitsubishi. But at the same time, the company has been a part of humiliating scandals too. Join us in this video to find out what Mitsubishi got right, what it got wrong, and where it finds itself today. Did you know that Mitsubishi first entered the car manufacturing business in 1917? They produced a car named Model A. The Model A was expensive and its production was soon stopped. For the next 40 years, there wasn't any real interest from Mitsubishi towards building a mass-produced car. Most of these years were spent dealing with the war and its aftermath. The victors of the Second World War believed that the Japanese economy should be pushed towards agriculture rather than industry. Mitsubishi was divided into three smaller entities for this purpose. What was the rationale behind this? A lack of industries would prevent any future war efforts from Japan. But this strategy changed when the race between communism and capitalism began to heat up. To promote the capitalist system in Japan, the United States supported ramping up industrial activity in the country. The results came quickly as Japan built up a rising middle class. All of this is important because the creation of a new middle class gave Mitsubishi a reason to look into car manufacturing again, and this time, their approach would be different. In 1960, one of the three Mitsubishi divisions, Central Japan Heavy Industries, launched the Mitsubishi 500, a small economical car targeting the Japanese middle class. This was followed by successful car launches by the other two divisions as well. As the Japanese economy showed more and more promise, the three divisions came together once again to form the Mitsubishi Heavy Industries in 1964. On April 22, 1970, the Mitsubishi Motor Corporation, or MMC, was launched. Having found success in the Japanese market, Mitsubishi now wanted to go international. However, they took a slightly different route than their Japanese peers. Instead of going to the international market alone, they formed a partnership with an American company. Do you know which one? The answer is Chrysler. Chrysler purchased 15% of Mitsubishi Motors within the first year of Mitsubishi's incorporation. Soon after, Mitsubishi Galant was rebranded by Chrysler and sold as the Dodge Colt in the United States. Apart from the United States, the Galant was also rebranded and sold in other countries. Mitsubishi was able to add exports to its business, and Chrysler added a reliable car to its portfolio. For the European market, Mitsubishi Motors decided to sell its cars directly, but under the Colt brand name. After a few successful years, the Chrysler partnership began to develop some cracks. There were primarily two reasons for this. The first was Chrysler's concern with Mitsubishi competing directly with their cars in Europe. Chrysler viewed MMC's attempt to create their own market as an encroachment on their business efforts in Europe. MMC, on the other hand, felt there was too much interference from Chrysler in their internal matters. Secondly, U.S. car manufacturers had woken up to the threat posed by Japanese car makers. The fuel shortages and rising fuel costs of the 1970s made Japanese cars more popular. They were smaller and more economical. Japanese cars were the need of the hour. To combat this threat, U.S. car makers successfully lobbied the government to restrict the number of cars that could be imported from Japan. The partnership may have broken down completely, but Chrysler found itself in major financial trouble. This allowed Mitsubishi to make some decisions without worrying about any opposition. In 1982, Mitsubishi entered the U.S. market under its own name, setting up its own distribution channels. However, this was not a fruitful decision because of some important restrictions and the fact that other Japanese car makers like Honda and Toyota were far ahead of Mitsubishi in their North American journey. The way to overcome these issues was simple. MMC and Chrysler set up a joint manufacturing unit in Illinois. Diamond Star Motors was a 50-50 venture between the two companies that would enable them to get rid of any import restrictions. By 1988, this unit was ready for operation, but this new venture was not enough to keep the two together. Chrysler sold its 50% stake in Diamond Star Motors to MMC, and by 1993 completely divested from MMC. For now, Mitsubishi was the master of its destiny. MMC had always entered their cars into different rallies around the world. Mitsubishi achieved constant success in these rallies. They had built up quite a reputation amongst rally and sports car enthusiasts. In 1988, MMC went public, raising enough funds to pay off debts and concentrate on expansion. Central to Mitsubishi's plans to increase its market share was a strategy to enter into new car segments. By the early 90s, Mitsubishi increased its focus on SUVs and high-performance sports cars. Now, this strategy was successful, but only partially. Some Mitsubishi cars like Evo, Lancer, and Pajero attracted a lot of interest and even achieved iconic status in some circles. The designs and materials used for some of these cars made them great for customizations and tunings. Rally enthusiasts loved this. For example, they used cast iron and aluminum blocks for their car engines. This made their engines capable of handling a lot more tuning and upgrading once the car was out of the factory. The Lancer and Evo became huge hits with customers who liked to tune their cars. Once the fuel shortages of the 70s were over, there was an increase in the demand for SUVs. The days when only small and economical cars were in demand were left behind. The Pajero became popular in many countries, including Japan. It was on the back of SUVs and heavy vehicles like Pajero that Mitsubishi reached a market share of 11% of the Japanese car market. But this can be considered one of the few high points for Mitsubishi. Some internal decisions and external factors had set it up for turbulent times. In the 1990s, the Japanese and other economies entered a phase called the Lost Decade. Sales slumped, borrowing became difficult, and Mitsubishi suffered greatly. Following the exit of Chrysler in 1993, Mitsubishi had been too slow to expand its North American market, so when the Japanese economy slowed, MMC could not depend on other markets to bail it out. Their factory in Thailand had to be closed because of the crisis. To overcome this short-term financial issue, Mitsubishi set up new joint ventures. By 2001, Chrysler and Mitsubishi were back in business. This time, Mitsubishi went after the US market aggressively. They started something called the 000 scheme. Anyone purchasing a Mitsubishi car could take the car home for 0 interest, 0 down payment, and 0 monthly payments for the first 12 months. A great deal, right? A lot of cars were purchased by those with low credit scores and eventually were returned because people defaulted on repayments. This put a struggling Mitsubishi in an even more difficult position, and the issues were not over. Next, a scandal broke out. It was revealed that Mitsubishi had not complied with some laws governing the automobile industry. Car manufacturers had to report any defects to relevant authorities and provide reports for any callbacks. Mitsubishi had failed to do so, or rather, decided not to do so. Once this became public, Mitsubishi would not turn in a profit for over 4 years. The parent company of MMC, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, had to bail them out. To add to these troubles, Mitsubishi Motors had a chaotic management that had undergone multiple changes throughout its existence. After a few years of poor sales, Mitsubishi decided to go the EV route. However, Nissan came up with the better EV and outsold MMC because of its superior car and distribution. Once again, Mitsubishi was in trouble. In 2010, they entered into a partnership with Nissan. This partnership was relatively successful, till it wasn't. But before that, it is important to know that by 2017, MMC had stopped production in Western Europe, Australia, and the United States. In all these markets, Mitsubishi could never hold down a specialty. They were selling cheap cars, big cars, sports cars, and EVs, and never really capitalized on their image amongst rally and sports car enthusiasts. Now, let's go back to the Nissan and Mitsubishi partnership. MMC made some cars for Nissan. In 2016, Nissan discovered discrepancies in the fuel efficiency data shared by Mitsubishi for these cars. Mitsubishi had been sharing inaccurate fuel efficiency data since 2002. Breaking standards and regulations seems to be a habit for Mitsubishi. By this time, Mitsubishi was in such bad shape that when Nissan pushed for compensation, it had no option but to give Nissan a controlling stake in MMC. This brings us to the current state of MMC. Today, Nissan owns 34% of MMC. Mitsubishi Motors is a part of the Renault-Nissan-Mitsubishi alliance. Much like its past, Mitsubishi's future is in the hands of its partners. It's almost annoying when you hear of stories like this, isn't it? Mitsubishi's current status cannot be blamed on any singular issue. According to me, we can nail it down to a few destiny-defining decisions. The company went public just as the Asian economy faltered. It entered into many joint agreements and depended on its partners for success. It didn't have a fixed identity and manufactured too many types of cars without succeeding in one domain. And finally, a lack of long-term vision because of short-term leadership. But why do you think Mitsubishi could never reach the heights of its Japanese peers like Toyota and Honda? Was it their risk-averse approach to business or some other strategic flaw? Comment below and share your thoughts. We love hearing from you. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more interesting content on some of your favorite companies. And hit that bell icon so that you're notified every time we drop a fresh video. See you next time.